Okay. Okay, welcome along to, I think it's November. Don't
Think.
know what day it is. I don't know anything this week. Welcome along to November's PeriClinic, which is all about sex, intimacy, and relationships, which is, well, in theory, we have an hour. Yeah,
Yeah.
we might need longer. See.
Yep.
Um, let's start off with some little introductions. I'm Emily. I run the Peri Hub. That's as much as I bring to the table here today. Lisa.
No.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm an ASEX certified sex therapist and also a Gottman trained couples counselor and licensed clinical social worker. I meet with adults and couples in therapy for all things related to sexual health, intimacy, and relationships.
And remind us where you're based, Lisa.
I live in Florida and I'm licensed for therapy in Michigan, Florida, and Indiana, and then also coaching for women worldwide.
Fab. And Blair.
Hi, I'm Blair, and I am a licensed therapist. I am also an ASEC certified sex therapist. I am also an ADHD perimenopause coach, and I am licensed currently in North and South Carolina. I am based in Western North Carolina, and I also have a coaching group that runs for women worldwide.
Fab. Bless you, Lisa. Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you
Bless
so
you.
much.
Bless you.
Sorry, all of a sudden I had 4 sneezes.
Right. Where are we going to start with this topic? Because it's huge. I mean, should we start with libido?
Yeah,
Yeah. Does that seem a
there's so many
sensible place?
places to start.
I mean, like, so just looking in the Facebook group, I'd say every day, multiple times a day, we have people going, what can I do? How can I help myself? Oh my God, my relationship's on the rocks. I've got no libido. I have no interest. How do we unravel that? Where do we start? Blair, I'm going to come to you first.
I always say communication, especially if it involves another partner. It is really assessing what has changed. When did it change? I'm really big on tracking stuff and just kind of going back. It doesn't have to be precise or perfect by any means, but just tracking, like, when did I notice that? And then if you're still cycling, when through your cycle, is it consistent? Does it go up and down? Has it gradually been declining? What other symptoms are you noticing? Any vaginal dryness or pain or just low desire? And then really talking with your partner and trying to help them understand, because I see a lot of the times in the group it's typically a husband or a male partner that then is blaming the female partner for the low sex drive or the not having sex frequently enough. And then, what they're posting, I often see is that shame. And so, really working through identifying with your partner and with yourself all the things that are going on and what you might be open to in order to try and improve. That way, you can go to your doctor if you need to and talk about treatment options or look at other things that you might be able to incorporate into your sex life and your routine that you and your partner are both consenting to and open to.
Lisa, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right on board with a lot of what Blair had mentioned, especially in terms of communication and noticing like different changes in your cycles. And while testosterone can help, I know that, I've taken testosterone cream. It does, even as a sex therapist, I would say my libido is average to high. I like it. Um, but I would say that since I took the testosterone cream daily, it gave me even more interest. So I will say it can be helpful. But also, like many different things can be helpful with our libido. I might copy or I might repeat some of the things that Blair had already said and overlap, but some things I like to kind of think about in terms of our libido is feeling good in our body, feeling comfortable, A lot of women feel like intimacy and sex is like one more chore they need to complete for someone else at the end of the day before they can finally go to bed or relax for themselves. So, like Blair said, communication is just so important. Knowing what we like, knowing what brings our self pleasure, advocating for that, communicating for that. I often like to say, let's use our partner as a sexy assistant so that we can explore what we like in our bodies. And lots of communication, like usually, just like Blair was saying, like it often comes from like typically like a husband pressuring, I want sex, this is my love language, etc. And it feels like even an obligation. And so making and receiving requests, like, I would really love this. What do you think? When responding to a request from our partner, I always like to say it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And it also doesn't have to be done to completion. A lot of people think it needs to be done to completion. One example of this is, say, oral sex. So many people would say, heck yes, to even 30 seconds of it. It doesn't have to be toward completion, something to keep in mind. Also, like in response to like, let's have sex more, is there any part of that that you do like, that you can say yes to? Are there alternatives? Let's make this a discussion rather than a full yes or a full no, right? And then another thing to keep in mind is like, I often say vacation vibes can be very helpful for libido. If you think about like two people going on a beach vacation at a beach resort, you're fully rested, you wake up, the breakfast buffet is laid out for you. Nobody has to cook or do dishes. You just enjoy it. You enjoy tons of time together, connecting on the beach, talking, laughing, flirting, having fun, restful. There's nothing to do. And then you go back to the room, you have a little happy hour with flirting as you shower before dinner. And that can often have some sexy time involved. And then there's just so much quality time. If you can replicate those vacation vibes at home in any way, we magically want connection and intimacy more. And I always use the word connection and intimacy, not just sex, because sex feels like so all or nothing, right? One final thing I might mention, hopefully I'm not speaking too long,
I don't know.
is another thing to think about is like working through messages growing up, either from family, religious figures, previous trauma. A lot of people, especially of like the Christian faith, for example, they grow up with this mindset, good girls don't have sex. So just turn those feelings off. We're not supposed to have them. But once you get married, oh, a wife is supposed to have sex with their husband. You know, this is very heteronormative, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Which in itself is problematic and harmful as well. But these are like common messages to work through so that we can explore our pleasure, what we want intimacy to look like, what do we like about it, how can we show up for our pleasure and enjoyment, speak up for that, share with our partner, and focus on ourselves a little bit. And those are a lot of the things I like to think about when I'm working with adults and couples in the areas of improving intimacy, improving libido for intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even thought about it, but you're absolutely right. The mixed messages that we get are crazy and actually tie in with a lot of the mixed messages that we get growing up. You know, just as a sort of slight aside, I mean, I remember the message when I was a kid around food was, oh, well done, you've got a great appetite, well done, you finished your plate. Then you suddenly reach an age where it's like, oh, you're going to eat all of that, and there's the same
Totally.
narrative going on, isn't there, of like, well,
Yes.
okay, that, no, we don't do that, oh no, actually you must do that, hang on a
Yeah,
minute, where do you need me?
it's
Right.
so confusing.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like this it's like, oh, you have to do it this way, and then you do it that way, and it's like, oh no, but not like that. But not like
Right.
that. It's really a lot of exploring for yourself with libido, especially in this phase of life. Because I think
Yeah.
a lot of men think of spontaneous desire, where
Mhm.
it's like they can just like turn it on, or it's on more frequently based on a lot of their own health factors and mindset factors and what they're wanting. And so they can just turn it on, whereas a lot of women might want a little bit more like foreplay or whining and dining and that kind of thing. And I think also, Lisa made a good point about intimacy. I use that word a lot as well. And I really emphasize the same thing, that it's not just about sex. I work with a lot of my clients and their partners. I do individual therapy, but their partners will often join in for a session here and there, and we'll talk about this. And I really work hard to talk with them about other ways to build intimacy, of asking each other deep questions, no matter how long they've been together. There's all kinds of those card decks that have
Mm.
just really thought-provoking questions. I have a few. I was honestly shocked at how much my husband loved these card decks. I pull them out while we're making dinner, and
Mhm.
I'll pull one and then I'll be like, I'm gonna pull one for you, because he'll be in the middle of making dinner, and I'll just ask it and then I'll answer it like he was asking it, and then he'll answer it. And there are times where he's like, hey, do you have those cards? And they really, I mean, we've been together not long. I mean, we've only been together 8 years and married for 3, but still, it really deepens our connection, and it opens up fun memories or things that we really hadn't talked about, or maybe we just hadn't approached, which then translates into us feeling a lot more connected. And then it translates into, better intimacy in the bedroom. And I have a lot of clients that use similar tools to help just create a better bond with their partner. And I will also say, I'm going to emphasize this: communication also involves listening.
Yeah.
That's the part that so many people miss when they're
Totally.
communicating, is only wanting to get their point across and not really fully listening. They can listen as long as they don't have any sort of disability with their hearing, but like they they don't really fully listen. They're not actively listening. And so that's the thing I also coach a lot of my clients and their partners to do, is really practice that active listening and making sure that you're understanding. You don't have to agree, but it's just that, oh, I see where you're coming from and I see it a little bit differently. How can we work together? So that listening part of communication, often not purposefully, most times gets left out.
Mhm.
And that's across way more than just
Yes,
relationships and intimacy.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, wow, if that's one skill, but imagine if that was properly taught, like that would be
Right?
amazing.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. My husband and I, we don't have children and we're not having kids, but we have literally laid out like a 4 semester plan for high schoolers, all about life skills. And there's an entire program. I mean, it was just like in our imaginary world, but there's an entire part that we've developed about these types of life skills, about communication and like managing your emotion. He's like, you could take over that part. And I'm like, yep, I definitely could.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm kind of starting to learn a bit more about, and obviously to you two, this will be kind of completely normal, but I'm not really big in this area, but spontaneous desire versus gradual desire. Now, as I understand it, that is often where we get this sort of supposed mismatch of libido, when actually it isn't about libido at all. It's just about a different
Yep.
warming up, as it were.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That communication is that, I mean, and it happens with women too. Some women have spontaneous desire and they just can like go and be ready, and like they just get excited really quickly, or it may depend on their age as well. But I think also a lot of people that I've worked with, as they've gotten older, they've noticed that shift, or as they settled into their relationship, it has kind of moved into that more gradual desire where they may need a little bit more buttering up, so to speak, or more foreplay. But again, that's where the communication comes in, and helping their partner to understand it may have been this way at the beginning of our relationship or when I was younger, but now that's changed and we have busy lives. We may have kids or other responsibilities that take over, and we have to communicate to make these shifts together.
And yet, Lisa, just earlier you referred to the fact that it can feel like just another thing on the to-do list. And I guess that ties in with this as well. You know, so if you've got one person in the relationship who's got the spontaneous desire and probably doesn't have the big mental to-do list, and the other one is gradual, how do we kind of balance that out? How do we explain to the person with the spontaneous desire that we don't have that any longer?
Absolutely, right? I think this is like such a great question, and something that I often talk about with my individuals and couples is that if we with spontaneous and receptive desire, one of the suggestions is like scheduled intimacy, because for women, they really, not all, of course, these are big generalizations and we don't want to be too heteronormative or anything like that. But for people, they like to look forward to it. They like to prepare for it. They like to be ready for it a lot of times. And a lot of times if we look at like even dating, so dating includes scheduled intimacy. If we think about it, most intimacy is actually scheduled. If we're dating, we know we have a date on Saturday night, and that typically involves like going out on a date and having intimacy together. We know about that ahead of time, and we can prepare all week. We can look forward to it. We can do our hygiene practices that make us feel our best. We can pick out a nice outfit. And a lot of women specifically like really enjoy being prepared physically and mentally, looking forward to it, planning a nice date, having good quality time, being excited. Whereas like if we focus on men, for example, they often are mentally ready to go at any time. And even if women are mentally ready to go at any time, which I would fit that category, mentally, I'm down anytime. However, the block for me is typically like hygiene or like scheduling, my schedule for the day. And so I like to do some shaving of different parts, to put myself into a good mindset, like feeling my best. And a lot of women are like that. They like to shower, maybe shave, spritz some perfume or whatever makes them feel their best so that they can truly enjoy it. So it's like when we have those conversations, a lot of partners totally understand. And so what the outcome typically is the person who likes scheduled and the other person who likes spontaneous and they just likes to be desired and they think, oh, scheduled is boring or forced or whatever. I often suggest the person who likes to be prepared, why don't you schedule it in your mind? And you could surprise your partner. It's a win-win. So you get to have it on your own terms. Your partner is like, whoa, sexy surprise. I'm down for the sexy surprise, like literally anytime. So they're not feeling rejected. They're feeling desired. And then oftentimes the woman who likes to prepare, she can schedule it in her mind. So it's that win-win. It's like working toward those win-win situations, I would say, is really helpful.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Do you guys, with your clients, ever encourage an amount of an expansive time of sex-free to allow intimacy to build again?
I don't typically, unless they feel that that's appropriate. I kind of am very client-centered, and I don't typically recommend, I mean, not that it's not a good thing, but that's just not something that I typically recommend with my clients.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, do you?
So I like how Blair, I totally agree with what Blair's saying. It's like very client-centered, very individualized. It always goes back to what feels best for them, what feels best to them, what feels good to them. And this is coming from an option where it's often called, let's take sex, intercourse off the table for right now. it can be a helpful option. I would never prescribe it. It could be an option. What I usually find this helpful for is if let's say a couple, they're not having intercourse or penetration, and so they're not having any intimacy at all. And that's where, like, a situation, we're not doing anything. We're not even cuddling. We're not kissing. We're not doing anything for fear it's going to lead to penetration. So, in those situations, it might be an option to consider. How would you feel? Would you feel safer if we just took the expectation of
Right.
intercourse and penetration off the table for right now, so you can explore all the other things on the sexy menu, non-sexual affection. What that does, it relieves the pressure, it relieves the expectation, and allows us to enjoy the other activities stress-free, pressure-free. But it's not a must. And I love how Blair said it's very individualized, it's client-centered, what feels good to them. And I also couple that with, what alternatives, what revisions do you have? Like, so this is an idea to inspire what feels good to you. What would you change? How would you revise it? How would you make this work for you and your partner?
Yeah,
'Cause
that's also
I'm sorry, carry on, Blair.
I'm sorry. That's also where I have them integrate those cards and those questions and building intimacy in other ways, where it might not necessarily be that, like, oh, we're going X amount of time without sex, because those cards and doing those other activities that aren't necessarily sexual without that expectation of sex may lead to sex.
Yeah.
Like, no expectation of it, but it still may lead to it, or may lead to other activities, like Lisa said, cuddling, kissing, just building that close bond with each other. So it's not like we set, like, oh, month sex free. It's like, okay, well, you're already sex free technically if you're struggling with these things. So it's not something that we need to take off the table. We just have to figure out how to build intimacy and connection in other ways.
Yeah, I guess I was more meaning I see it, a lot of posts as obviously you two do, in the big Facebook group of women going, I don't dare even hug him. I don't
Yeah.
dare even brush past him because I don't dare walk to the bathroom naked because it'll get misinterpreted. And I think, oh my word. So I guess that was what I was trying to ask, is there ever an argument for saying, right, okay, actually, to get you both back to square one, let's just take that off the table for a couple of weeks, just to remove that elephant from the room, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think, like Lisa said, that expectation of it. Yeah. It's like, okay, there's no expectation. This is kind of where I usually, like, back people down, back people out, where I'm like, okay, let's get back. I'm very big on, like, the foundation, like, let's get back to the rebuilding that foundation that seems to have been lost or broken for whatever reason. How can we assess what led to that, what's been going on, and then rebuild that however we see best fit, and just really be gradual with them and really go at their own pace, and just kind of see what they're needing and the feedback that they give specifically. But yeah, kind of removing that expectation is important.
So I'm
And
going
a
to ask.
fun fact,
Oh, sorry.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, carry on, carry on.
I was gonna say, like, a fun fact outcome of that is sometimes they surprise themselves, and it does lead to intercourse
Right.
and different forms of penetration. But it allows them to be, like, enjoying those non-sexual activities, allowing that connection, allowing that buildup without that pressure. Sometimes they surprise themselves in doing it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yes.
So my next question, is there must be stats for what normal looks like in terms of amount of sex in a relationship?
Mm, I mean, there might be. I'm sure there's research, because there's research
Yeah.
like on everything. But I don't really feel as though there is a norm. I mean, I usually say, if you're having sex at least once or twice a week, that's pretty healthy. But for some people, it's less than that. For some people, it's definitely more than that. So again, it is very person and situation and relationship specific.
Because I feel like there's a lot of
Totally.
I feel like there's a lot of comparison out there in the world of like, oh God, I should be,
Yep.
you know, I should be having sex 5 times a week or whatever, or I should be doing this, or I should be doing that. And it's like, well, hang on a second, is that what's right for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Like what's right for you is always most important. In terms of like statistics, um, there's a funny fact out there that says like ages 70s and better have a lot of sex. But when we say sex, it's really intimacy, right? Intimacy in general. And 70s and better have a lot of sexy time, a lot of intimacy. They're retired. There's no fear of pregnancy. They have all
Right.
day to connect. And, I find my clients in their 70s and more, they lay in bed naked together all day and just cuddle and talk. And it leads to more intimacy. It may not be penetration, may not be rock hard erections, things like that, but a lot of connection. Some studies will even say like 30s to 50s, if you look at like prime working years, taking care of kids, maybe taking care of elderly parents, like the sandwich role, that can often like lead to less intimacy for all these reasons we're talking about. Feels like one more chore. Women are often like touched out by kids or taking care of people at work, taking care of kids, taking care of their older parents. So just some kind of things to consider. But in terms of like working with couples, they often ask that question, how often should we be having intimacy? And it just goes back to like what Blair keeps saying is that it's very individualized. What feels good to you? What feels best for you? There's no right or wrong. There's no should. There's no standard to hit because this is all performance based. And in sex therapy, we want it to be pleasure rather than performance based, you know?
Mhm.
If somebody were to say, that sounds all great, Lisa, but what are the actual numbers? I would say like a couple in their 40s, on average, the ones that I've worked with will have sex anywhere from like 0 times to maybe 3 times a week. And anything in that is extremely common. And the most common would be like maybe 3 to 5 times a month, even
Yeah.
for actual intercourse and penetration. Now, intimacy typically is more. And also keeping in mind the sample size are the ones coming to me for sex therapy.
Of course. So
So
you're
the
getting a
ones who
skewed
are
view
maybe
there.
having tons of
Yeah.
sexy time are not coming my way.
So next question, sort of taking sex and that side of things off the table briefly. What are things that can help us to build stronger relationships? I'm still talking about a sort of an intimate relationship, so like a partner,
Mhm.
husband, spouse relationship rather than a friendship relationship. But if we're sort of taking sex out of this, what do you guys see as the foundations of a successful relationship? And I know communication is going to come up immediately. I'm very aware of that.
I will say, and I'm in the process of making like stickers because it's just my thing I'm into now. And I like something I say, and my clients are like, you say that all the time. 100% of the problems are communication. Like everything boils down to communication, whether it's unclear communication, miscommunication, misunderstanding. That's really the foundation. But the thing that I typically recommend for my clients that are coming in with these struggles is date your partner. You don't have to go out on an extravagant date. You can have, my husband and I have dates at home all the time. We are homebodies. Like we go out, but it's usually an event. Like there is something going on that's drawing us out. We are at the age where we just don't go out, and party anymore like we did in our 20s. So it's like we are just in a different phase in our life. So we have date nights at home all the time. We have movie nights. We make dinner together. We go sit outside around our fire pit and just hang out and talk and show each other silly memes on our phones and like giggle. And it is, I think that to us is intimacy. That to us is building our relationship. So I work really specifically with my one of my big things, and I'm sure Lisa will probably agree with this, is I build very strong rapport with my clients. I get to know them like as they truly are. I work with them to completely unmask, and I want to know like what their favorite things are, and I like to have fun conversations with them. It's not all serious when we're doing our work together because
Yeah.
that's where I tie in a lot of that stuff and really helping them to see where they can connect with their partners. Another thing is I really also work with clients on being individuals and doing their own thing because my husband and I are very independent people. We didn't get married until later in life. We had our own lives and our own interests. And I was worried that I was going to lose my sense of self in that. When we got together, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is this going to be like? Especially when we moved in together. I had never lived with a partner before, so had no idea what it was going to be like. But I still have maintained my sense of identity, and I have a partner who embraces that and supports that, and I do for him as well. And it really does help us connect. He may not understand or be into my, you can't see it here, but my 10 million crafts in my craft room office here. He's like, oh, you have a new craft you're doing. Okay, what is this one? Awesome. Great. You're doing bead weaving now. Okay. He's like, how long is that gonna last? Like, but
You
it's
don't
like,
need to put a time frame on
right,
crafts.
I'm
Come
like,
on.
stop judging. I'm like, it probably will just be this one pair of earrings that I'm going to make, but hey, that's okay. But he's very curious, and it does it, and I get curious about the things that he wants to go and do and that he's interested in. So really also still maintaining that sense of individuality because when you do reconnect, it gives you stuff to talk about. I have couples all the time that are like, we have nothing to talk about anymore. We've been married for 25 years and we have nothing in common. And I'm like, that's okay. My husband and I don't have we have a lot in common, but then there's a lot that we don't have in common. And it's just getting curious about your partner and really just understanding them in a different way at a different phase in life.
Definitely. Yeah.
Lisa, anything to add?
Yeah, so in terms of building stronger relationships and enhancing those strong connections with good compatibility, so I know the communication aspect and being continuing ourselves and our passions, is so important. And then I've also come up with what I call the 4 pillars of compatibility for strong relationships. And so I'll just a brief overview of that, those like 4 pillars of like strong relationships. One would be the best friend vibe, I call it. How is our best friend connection? Do we feel safe together? Do we trust each other? Are they our go-to? Like when we share exciting news, are they the first person we think of? If we're having a hard time, can we go to that person? They're our person. We love spending time together, right? Another one is, I call it roommates because we often share space. We share a living situation. Are we aligned in areas of like having kids, having pets, smoking or not, substances or not, quiet or loud, super clean or is a little mess okay, right? Sleeping schedules, division of chores. And then another one is like romantic partners. How is our romantic connection? Non-sexual affection, sexual affection. How is that aligned? Do we want to take a look at like what we both like, activities, frequencies, moods, etc. And then a fourth one is life partners. So looking at like our vision together, do we have similar views and values in terms of politics, religion or non-religion, spiritual views and practices, finances, financial planning for the future. If I were to ask you, what's your 5-year plan? Would you be aligned and would it be similar as each other? What about the 10-year plan, right? So looking at like strong relationships, if we consider these 4 pillars, best friends, roommates, lovers, and life partners, it often helps people say, wow, we do have a great relationship, but these 2 areas that you described, those are some topics we can dig deeper and strengthen our connection. Because when we're really taking a look at all 4 of these aspects, it helps provide a strong relationship, strong connection, and that absolutely influences affection as well. So I like to look at those 4 areas for awareness, reflection, and opportunities to even build the relationship even stronger.
Love
That's
that.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that actually 3 of the pillars have nothing to do with the sort of intimacy side of things in the traditional way, and
Yeah.
actually give grace and space to people who have found their person, but are maybe not traditionally doing the stuff, and
Yeah.
which also means for people who might find that they kind of are more on the sort of asexual end of the spectrum,
Yes.
suddenly by looking at those 4 pillars, you're kind of going, actually, it's okay. And I think that brings us
Totally.
back to the should that we've covered off quite a lot of times, is
Yes.
this notion, and I do see it too often in the hub, of people going, oh well, I'm not meeting my wifely duties, or whatever other horrible terms that just have such ooze should
Yeah.
out of them, when actually
Totally.
it's like, well, if you're both happy, then
Yep.
if you're both happy and it's no sex, or you're both happy and it's 25 times a day,
Yes.
that's fine. If
Absolutely.
if it's when there's the mismatch that it becomes a problem, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, totally. I'm often a grandpa, and so one of my grandpa sayings is the proof is in the pudding. If you're both happy, it's great,
Yep.
right?
Right.
That's
Yep.
all that matters. It doesn't matter what the couple next door is doing or, the partnerships down the road are doing. It doesn't matter. Whatever feels good to both of you, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I really emphasize that intimacy just isn't sex. And I do a lot of values-based work with my clients when they initially come in. And even if they know their values, we just kind of reassess them. And I really have them identify what those values mean to them, because the values exercise I give them, it has little definitions, which sometimes they resonate with those definitions. But I really work and I'm like, what does this mean to you in your life? How are you
Yeah,
already living these things, and how can you continue to grow in these things and learn from these things? And there's a program that I am wanting to develop called dating with intention, because I work with a lot of singles. I have a lot of individual clients who are in the dating realm and trying to navigate the dating sphere. So I have this whole program and this kind of outline of different topics to explore for yourself, what's important to you and where you stand on certain things. And I really reinforce them, like, it's okay if you're on the fence about certain things and you're not really sure, but it's knowing that and being able to have some of those conversations in dating relationships sooner rather than later. Best to know up front, like if you're someone like me who's like, I want to be child free, you don't want to get too far down the road. I've had a couple clients who've been in this position and I'm like, oh my gosh, how have you not talked about this? They've been married for like 10 years and the wife is like, I want to have kids. And the husband's like, I don't know if I want to have kids. And it's
yeah,
like, we have to talk about these things. We have to know up front. And it's not that it's necessarily a deal breaker, but it's just how do we navigate through that? But knowing where you stand and what's important to you up front,
totally.
and having those again, communication and having
Yes,
those conversations also builds trust and it builds intimacy, even in a long-term or married partnership. It doesn't necessarily have to be at the beginning of dating. Maybe you just didn't talk about those things. It's never too late to talk about them. Like, okay, they're here now. Let's talk about it. Let's dig into it.
Yes. And on our list of courses that we would love to see, like in school, I would love to have like a self-exploration class, because I know for me personally, I was just conditioned like, oh, I want to get married and I want to have kids. And I actually don't like either of those things. I like being partnered, you know, even like conditioned to what we're expected to like. So I'm a white girl, right? So I'm expected to want to get married to a man and have kids, and I'm expected to be attracted to only men, right?
Right.
And the thing is, none of that's true for me, you know, that and nobody has had that conversation with me, parents, at school, like even different sources of support. Never have I been asked, what do I actually want? What am I actually attracted to? What kind of connections feel good to me? So I'm partnered, not married. I chose not to have kids. I'm attracted to masculine features, no matter what the gender is. And that was never considered like an option for me to explore, but that very much is who I am. So like this self-exploration is incredibly valuable. It's not locked into any box, you know?
Yeah.
No, and it's so interesting because I spent a lot of my 20s and 30s kind of beating myself up because I hadn't found the one and done the marriage and kids thing that I thought I was meant to do, that then I now realize I had no wish to do either of those things at all, and it's not for me at all. And you know, people kind of, well-meaning people go, oh, you know, focus on yourself, and you know, when you're least expecting it, the right person will come along. Now, I wish somebody had actually broken that down for me to say, stop settling for stuff just because it means that there's somebody to go on a date with. I wish somebody had actually, you know, when I was like 12, 13, said, you are perfect as you are. What you need is what you need, and only the right person is right with you, as opposed to, you know, as I'm sure lots of us did, you know, some people are lucky and meet their person very quickly, and that's fab. A lot of us didn't, and chased around and made a lot of mistakes.
We all do, you know.
And it's damaging to you. And because there was this whole kind of should, it's another should, you know, I do hate shoulds, but exactly as you says, Lisa, I was raised very similarly, that, you know, well, of course you'll meet a guy, you'll marry him, and then you'll have kids. And I'm like, right, okay. And I remember thinking that should happen by the time I was about 25. That's like the magic age when that happens, right?
Yeah.
And I got to 25 and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of pretty single and I'm certainly not ready for kids. And actually, that job in the French Alps looks fun. I'm just going to go and do fun stuff for a bit. And I just remember then like coming back to the UK kind of 5 years later and going, okay, so the should thing is still there. Okay, well, here's a guy who's paying me some attention. I guess I'd better go out with him, and like, you know, on paper, he kind of seems, you know, on paper, by the way.
On paper.
On paper. In reality, no. And it was only after just the most horrific experience, I won't bore people with it, that I finally looked at myself. And went, okay, what do I need? And you know, by this point, like sort of mid-30s, I'm still like, yeah, kids really doesn't seem like it's a like I really don't think I'm ever going to be old enough for that, like grown up enough for that, because that feels like quite a grown-up thing to have to do. Do you know what I mean? And so then when I met my partner, and it's very nearly 15 years that we've been together, so I think that's kind of working. Like day one, I was like, so his ex-wife had kids from a previous relationship, so he'd like kind of helped raise them, and so I was like, I just need to kind of clear this up. So I'm never going to have children, and obviously you haven't been a dad, but you have raised some kids. And I don't know if you, because
Yeah.
he just turned around and went, oh, thank Christ for that. Do you go to the pub? And I was like, okay.
Well, yeah.
And it was that thing of going, why had the education not been there when I was a teenager? Why did
Yes.
it take until I was in my mid-30s to go, this is me,
Yes.
me knowing my own mind, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Being
it's
able to
healing, you know?
yeah. Yep. Very empowering to like come to that conclusion. And I wish I had learned it sooner myself, and knowing that it is okay. And I had the same concept of like, oh, like I do this, then I do this, then I go to high school, I graduate, I go to college. Even that, like I wish I had been given the options of like
Right.
what else there is to do after. I don't know if
Oh,
I would
right.
have gone to college. I may have gone to
Right.
cosmetology school. I may have done something else, but it's just I used to work with a lot of teens, and I did a lot of that work of like, you have options, you have
Yes.
choices. How can we help you figure out that? And you don't have to have it all figured out by the time you graduate or by the time
No.
you're 18. You have other options. And same thing with your lifestyle, is if you don't ever want to get married, you don't have to. And even I work with a lot of couples that have kind of non-traditional living situations. Some of them live in separate homes, some of them live in separate bedrooms. And they're like, you know what? It really helps our relationship. We still
Yeah.
have sex, we still are intimate, and actually boost that because it's like, oh, it's exciting to go into their room or to go to their house or to have them come to mine. So that also is the same thing. It's they're and when they talk about it, they're like, is that weird? And I'm like, no, actually, it's not. It's a lot more common than you think. People just don't talk about it because they
So
think
true.
it's
Yeah.
normal. And so it's really
Yeah.
helping people to normalize a lot of this stuff and say, whatever it is that makes you feel good. I have three rules that I have in my life, and I pass them on to friends and clients. And it's as long as you're not hurting yourself, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. And if it's sexual, it's consensual.
Yeah.
That leaves a lot open. And
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing. And I think I find it interesting observing, as somebody of our age, and observing how younger people now seem much more in touch with what their gender fluidity might be, what their sexuality might be. And I feel
Yeah.
like we were very much, and the generation before us even more so, very much more so, but still it was kind of, there was an expectation that, well, you're a girl, so you'll grow up and you'll meet a man and you'll have
Right.
kids and you'll do all the normal stuff. And I look back and I my heart breaks for the girls at school who knew they were different from that, but didn't have the vocabulary to explore that.
yep,
Yes.
yep,
And
Yes.
I see a lot of, and I hear this from like friends and whatever, that a lot of women kind of get to this midlife point and suddenly go, should I have explored having a same-sex relationship? Have I missed the boat there? Because
Right.
yeah.
like,
There
because
are
I've
so
always been
many.
doing this thing that I was meant to do. Have I just
Uh-huh.
missed being myself?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I find
And
that so interesting.
it is very interesting. There are a lot of older people who end up getting divorced from their partner of the opposite gender and then
Hmm.
find themselves in same-sex
Mm.
relationships. And like, is this normal? And again, I say like what
Definitely.
like that's
Are
your life.
you
Yeah,
happy?
I'm like that's what's
Yes.
more important is that what's okay with you? And really helping them to understand and find themselves and be confident in themselves in whatever it is. I have a lot of LGBT plus clients that really talk about their high school,
I bet.
lives, and they're like, I dated men, and like I was like, this isn't working. Like this doesn't work. And I'm like, yeah, because that's not who you were. Like, of course it's not going to work that way.
Yeah.
I'm a hetero cisgender woman. It would be as though I was trying to go in and force myself to date women. I find women very beautiful, but I am not sexually attracted to women.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't fully get it, but I'm like, yeah, that's not how you were designed. And they're like, yeah, I wish I would have known that sooner. And I'm like, well, you know it now, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
And this is the point where we move forward and we start to normalize some of this for you.
Absolutely. I know a lot of women, just like you're saying, in perimenopause, they reevaluate their identities, and including their sexual orientation. And even if you couple that with like, oh, my alarm just went off because I do have a client here in about 5 minutes. So I just
Okay.
I'll have to hop off in a couple minutes. But yeah, I mean, a lot of women in peri, like they reevaluate their orientations, and even if you couple with that with like lower libido and they don't necessarily want to increase it, or maybe they really value connection and closeness and having a best friend to share your life with,
Right.
maybe it's a different gender. Do you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you're not interested in intercourse, hey, this other person is looking pretty good to share my life with, like it all just kind of like, it's a reevaluation. One of the things I love about Peri is like being in tune with ourselves, giving ourselves permission to live as we truly are. And I feel like that's a magical gift of perimenopause.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
One quick point to that as well. I know we've been talking a lot mostly about monogamous relationships, but I
Yes,
also
absolutely. Sorry, I should have brought this up as
no,
well. Yeah.
no, it just like clicked in my
Yeah.
head. I was like, oh my gosh. But this is also a time where people will open up their relationship. Maybe they
Yeah.
are with a partner that has low libido, low sex drive. They aren't having sex, but they have that conversation. There's the communication again. And they both agree and are okay with exploring opening up their relationship and
Yeah.
whatever partner or both partners even to go and date and still stay in their primary relationship. That is also being talked about and normalized a lot more. And I'm really glad because it is what's finding what works for your relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, I'm aware of the time, Lisa, so I'm just going to quickly come to you and then to Blair. What would be your top 3 tips?
I think so top 3 tips in terms of like
In terms
intimacy
of
and
all of it. Yeah.
relationships, like yeah, I love like being yourself, allowing yourself to be who you truly are without pressure or expectation or shoulds. I also love the idea of getting to know what you like, exploring with solo pleasure. What kind of touches do you enjoy? And then communicating that with your partner, right? And then thinking outside the box. Instead of sex, how about we use the word intimacy to take a look at there's a menu of options to enjoy. It doesn't have to be structured, right? There's no performance goal to hit. We don't want to say things like, oh, it didn't work or nothing happened or it was a failure. Intimacy is just connecting with each other. It's not about performance or expectation. It's about enjoying each other and feeling close.
Awesome. Blair,
Yeah.
is it
I would,
communication, communication,
yeah,
communication?
you got it. There we go. We're done. No, I would agree with Lisa on building intimacy in other ways. Building intimacy in outside of the bedroom, I think is really important. And dating each other. It doesn't matter how long you've been together, but just finding ways to connect and date and kind of just have fun together. I think people take sex and intimacy entirely too seriously. Laugh together. Laugh when you're having sex, especially. Like it doesn't have to be that serious. Have fun with it.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For people watching, I was going to open the floor to questions, but we've kind of run out of time. So thank you so much. And next PeriClinic is next month.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Oh.